so much of being a chef, and growing from a cook to a chef is about finding your voice and finding like what you like and what inspires you to create your own voice. And you do that by, obviously you start by cooking other people's food and learning from other people, but it's really about developing your own voice and what shapes and molds that to become who you are. And it's funny the way you describe that, because I was like, yeah, you're talking about cooking.
Well, Gabe, thank you for cruising over this way. I just got to say, we did this once before, but what we had talked about was kind of like a whole conversation, and then shortly thereafter,
life changed.
And so everything we talked about was sort of invalid, and it wasn't really up to date.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say invalid. I would just say, the not current. Yeah. And irrelevant, I guess.
Absolutely.
In some way.
And I also realized that I told this to my friend, Spencer, who's a chef. I was like, man, after you left, I was like, I wish I had asked all these other questions. And I think I even told that to Andre. And so I feel like in some way,
it's better.
It's
good.
It's way better. And that's what we've been talking this entire time. So I feel like I have a better rapport. Right?
No, for sure. There's some good thought-provoking conversations, and I feel like I know you better now. So, yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good. I mean, yeah.
So, dude, what do we do with your hair?
I think, as short as you can on the sides. I like the length on the top, but if you could kind of texturize it, I kind of just comb it to the back and to the side.
When you say
whatever you did last time, I don't remember, but it was fucking awesome. You like it?
Yeah. I don't think I did the clippers. I think I just took it really tight.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Do you care if you see a little bit of skin right around that ear area? Because I know the temple and the neckline are the first areas that guys usually go crazy.
Go for it.
They go like, once it touches my ears, I know it's time to get a haircut.
Yeah. Do your thing.
Do your thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's kick you up.
Yeah, I remember leaving last time and feeling like, it was a special haircut. So
it
felt more thoughtful than
I like that you called it a special haircut. For me, it was like a normal haircut, but
yeah,
it just shows that like what you're used to is what you're used to.
Well, I mean, to put it in the chef way, it's like you leave a restaurant and you're like, man, that was a very thoughtfully put together meal, and that's kind of how I felt. Like the haircut felt thoughtful and intentional.
Totally. In my terms, I'm imagining like this is like a haircut I would just give normally.
Yeah.
I imagine like if I was to go over to your house and you're like cooking dinner, you're like, this is how we normally eat. Like, man, the flavors are so good.
Yeah.
This is how we normally eat.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the house smells amazing. Oh, I know that
Let's hang on. I'm glad that you think the house smells amazing.
Yeah.
Always some food cooking. Yeah, well, it's I'm a big fan of cooking. I've told you this many times. I think if I wasn't a hairdresser, if I was banned from using scissors, I would just switch to knives.
Yeah.
And I'd become a chef. I don't know if I'd be any good at it, but I definitely enjoy it. It's one of the most relaxing, zen-like things for me. It's like when there's nobody home and it's just me cooking dinner, waiting for like my wife and my kids to get home from somewhere. I'm just blasting music.
Yeah.
And just cooking. And I'm just like, truck around, hopping, skipping around the kitchen, just going from one part to the other part. And I'm just having a blast.
Yeah.
And I know that's not what it's like.
Oh, it is.
It is?
It is. I think in different, it's not, I mean, it can be the bear.
Okay.
In some aspects. I mean, there's a little bit of that that's glorified and set out to be a little bit more dramatic than life. But yeah, there's a little bit of reality to that. But I mean, a lot of people do what they do because they love being in the kitchen cooking, and they love the grind, they love the pressure, they love being able to go in and do the same thing that they've done a million times before, but try and do it better the next time. It's always about trying to be better every day and learning something new every day.
So for those who don't know you, and can you please introduce yourself, Gabe?
Yes. I am Gabe Erales. I live here in Austin. I'm a chef. I've been in Austin off and on since '98. I was raised in El Paso, Texas. My family moved there from Mexico. And I came to Austin in '98 to study at UT and was working in restaurants while I was studying. And then shortly after leaving college, I realized I really missed working in restaurants and went back after it and had been on this dual path for a while and, just really stuck my head down and got after it. And, here I am today. Years and years later after, I started my first restaurant job when I was 15 at a steak and ale in El Paso, Texas, working for my brother.
Do you ever sometimes think like, wow, I started at Steak and Ale in El Paso, Texas, and then here I am, winner of Top Chef, traveling around the US and Mexico and doing these working with these other amazing, renowned culinary experts. Do you ever have those pinch yourself moments, or was it such a slow build to something like that it doesn't faze you?
I think there were some high catalysts in my life, both peaks and valleys, but I think the trajectory was so unorthodox that, I definitely had those like, oh shit moments. I can't believe this, where I am. But I also, being a chef as my career was never really the plan from I grew up in a big family, 5 brothers, 1 sister. Both of my parents were extremely strict about education. And I think, that's really what drove me and all my siblings. Always did really well in school. And, I have 2 degrees in engineering. But what I found throughout, the latter years of my life in college and after college, I was really finding joy and happiness in cooking. Much like you say, like it's one of your favorite things to do at home. It's like, being in a restaurant and that, that projected chaos that you see on shows like The Bear and things like that, it really can feed you and inspire you to want to keep going and learning more and pushing yourself harder and harder. And, I found myself really, really wanting that fuel to keep me going and learning more. But more so in the path of diverging down my culture and my family's culture and where they come from in Mexican cuisine. That's really why I am who I am today in terms of, my cooking voice as a chef.
Because your family is from the Yucatán.
Yep.
I would like to experience what that cuisine is like. Maybe I've already had and I'm a bit unaware of dishes that are more Yucatán inspired.
Yeah. There's a few iconic ones, cochinita pibil is probably one of the bigger.
I don't even know what that is. As you said.
So cochinita pibil is probably one of the more commonly known dishes from the Yucatán.
Okay.
Essentially pork that's been marinated in a mixture of achiote and sour orange. Mm-hmm. You see that pork that's like super bright red.
Yeah. I've never had it.
Yeah. It's good. Oh yeah. Yeah. You definitely need to try it out here. It's fairly simple to make.
Really?
Yeah. Obviously there's level. I say that I take it with a grain of salt because experiencing cochinita pibil cooked, in a proper pib, which is like in the ground.
Yeah.
And having it, made with, traditional sour orange and like a freshly ground recado rojo of spices and annatto seeds is much different than buying the El Yucateco achiote at the store, blending it with a little bit of like mixture of orange, lime juice, and grapefruit to mimic that sour orange flavor. But you still get a really, really good result. And, you can that's something you can line your smart cooker with banana leaves, put a pork shoulder in there that's been rubbed in this marinade and let it go. And then you'll have some amazing tacos for dinner.
Have you ever thought about just making that marinade and selling it?
I have not.
I'm just thinking like quick business idea. Like,
well, there is kind of existing products out there on the market for that, but no,
I always think of like David Chang, right? Like,
yeah,
how many similar things are out there, but he's doing his version of the same similar thing.
Noodles and the chili crisp.
Yeah,
my kids love that stuff, but
I haven't had it.
They're kind of like packaged ramen.
Yeah,
kids like they like that stuff. We never really buy it for them, just because obviously not the greatest thing to put in your body.
I lived off it when I was in cosmetology school. Man.
Yeah,
I lived off that and Dr. Pepper. If you were to look at like what I was eating when I was a poor cosmetology student, working a minimum wage job, like trying to get my band signed. Yeah. So what I'm eating and how I'm living my life now, it's very very different, even though.
But it's delicious too at the same time, you know. And it's just like there's nostalgia behind it, and I ate that stuff growing up, and like I'm not gonna deny him of these flavor memories. I'm like, yeah, sure, man. We're gonna buy you some of these David Chang noodles, and my daughter will doctor them up with all kinds of hot sauce and lime and things like that. And it's
oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to think of where I was. I was somewhere recently. I was traveling, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna have that because I never eat this, and I'm traveling. There's really not like a lot of food options. And I was just very much like let down. I realized, I was out in California, and I went to go get fried chicken at Knott's Berry Farm. So it's like Mrs. Knott's famous fried chicken, which is the whole.
I think I saw your story on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I couldn't wait to go. And it was not how I remember.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, like, I hadn't been back to New York since 2019. And I have no signs of showing up to New York in the near future. But I keep thinking, like, would I want to go back to some of those restaurants because now I've removed so many things out of my diet of consuming food that I'm wondering, like, has my palate changed?
Yeah.
Like Hershey's chocolate kisses they were sweet, but I'm imagining now they're going to be even like crazy sweet because I'm not used to that amount of sugar. I'm
sure.
So it makes me wonder, like, would that burger joint still be that good?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, maybe I should just try other stuff, you know, like maybe I will just be eating at the Hugh Kitchen nonstop like I was at one point, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a place in El Paso called Chico's Tacos, and it's like this famous, you know, restaurant that everybody would go to. And it's like, they sell these rolled tacos stuff.
You post this recently, like when you're out there?
I might have, yeah. You know, they have these rolled tacos, which most people call flautas, and they sell them, you know, in single and double orders, which is like 3 and 6, I believe, or 2 and 4. I can't remember, you know, and it comes with this like really, really watery tomato sauce. I mean, all the basis of all of this stuff is like really shitty ingredients, but
of course,
growing up eating this was like, you know, amazing. And going there at 2 a.m. like was amazing.
Oh, that's like Del Taco in California.
Yeah.
It's like I like it more than Taco Bell, but man, yeah, same thing. It's like horrible fast food.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But when you're leaving the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. It's a spot.
Like, tell the cab driver, make a quick rate on this. They're like, why? I'm like, I'll pay you for your time. I want to get a burrito.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, going back now to having it just doesn't hit the same anymore. But, you know, but there is a place here in Austin called El Perrito. Mm-hmm. And they do like an amazing higher quality version of everything this place in El Paso did. And it's over there off of like Stastny, and it's incredible.
I've never I drove through El Paso, California, but I've never stopped to stay there. Are there apart from like these, you know, core childhood flavor memories of food, are there restaurants like if somebody was doing a road trip? Because I know like Marfa is like a big spot that a lot of people go to. Yeah. If you're going from here, let's say you're driving to and from Austin to the West Coast, and you're going to pass through El Paso. If you're going through the southern part of it, if you're going north to like higher New Mexico and all that, you're going to skip all that. But like if you're going on the lower, is there like food you're like, you have to try this?
No, for sure. So awesome. No, for sure.
My favorite restaurants have always been like these one-offs.
There's probably a list of 20 spots in El Paso that, you know, are definitely worth pulling over and having some incredible, unique meals there that are just beyond, you know, childhood flavor memories and whatnot. And also the city is just becoming incredibly awesome. You know, there's a lot of growth. Mm-hmm. You know, downtown's really starting to develop its identity. You know, and I have a lot of friends in the industry that are really, you know, single-handedly kind of changing the face of what the nightlife in El Paso is as well. You know, culinary hospitality. You know, I've been doing a lot of dinners there these last, you know, 6 months.
You mean the El Paso family?
Yeah, El Paso family meal. So exactly.
This is crazy. So like Andre was at one of them.
Andre was at one of them as well.
And then my friend Arthur was at one of them. Arthur Hernandez.
Okay, cool.
And he's like, yeah, dude, because I ran to Chef PSA and Gabe, and he was like talking about it. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I didn't realize how many people I knew from the El Paso area that are food.
Yeah.
So it was like this, like out of the 4 people I know in Austin area that are chefs, 3 of them
Cool.
are from El Paso.
That's amazing.
Spencer's from Southern California. He's the outlier. Like, what made the 3 out of the 4?
Well, I think it's cool. I'm just curious. I think it's coincident. There's an incredible amount of talent, in the culinary community that comes out of El Paso, believe it or not. There's people like Omar Flores in Dallas. There's, I have a friend named Jake Rojas in Rhode Island who's super talented. You have, here in town, Fermin Nunez, who works at Suerte, has ties to El Paso. We got Rico Torres in San Antonio, who founded El Paso Family Meal. All of these, Michelin caliber chefs. There's a chef in New York City who just got a Michelin star at a place called Karima. That, all of these incredible ties to El Paso food. And, there's not a ton, but there is a solid dozen plus that are all over the U.S. and, have done really meaningful, impactful stuff for cooking. And they just opened a very, very, state-of-the-art culinary school there within the last 2 years, backed by some really, well-known Mexican chefs.
Yeah.
So I think that the amount of, culinary students and grads coming out of El Paso is climbing exponentially, and the market's growing there, and, new restaurants are opening that are feeding that demand.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, you brought up Michelin, and now Texas is now officially part of the Michelin Guide.
Yeah.
And the Michelin Star Network. We don't have to name names here. Were you surprised of who didn't make it on the stars list?
I wasn't, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't surprised.
Andre said that had he still been working at one of the restaurants, it would have made it on the star.
I think that was. I think that was very much possible.
It's hard. I thought he was like showboating, like making a joke, but then I was thinking, I'm wondering, like, how true was the joke?
Yeah.
But then I was like, he's a really good chef, so I'm like, it probably is one of those like half true, half jokes. Like,
yeah,
good. They made it on the guide.
Yeah.
Like an honorable mention.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, huh.
Yeah, I think that, Andre and the former chef that was leading the kitchen were really doing some amazing food in that restaurant, Garrison. And
yeah,
it's a little bit harder sometimes for them to get recognized because being in a hotel. For example, Ludi's, there's a restaurant, Ludi's, the Commodore Perry Estate, and the chef couple that operate that restaurant are extremely talented. And I felt like maybe they probably got left off the list. But it's hard to say. It's year one. I'm definitely no expert. I have my thoughts and opinions, but I thought, for the most part, for the people that received stars, they did a pretty decent job.
And that's cool.
I think that what they did with the barbecue world is a little bit different, but I think what they're, my perception of what they were trying to do was create a benchmark for, what good barbecue is. I don't think that if you go to France and have a 1-star Michelin meal, it's the same as going and sitting at a 1-star Michelin barbecue restaurant. But I think that what they're trying to say is like, hey, you should go out of your way to go eat this barbecue because this is a Texas thing. And, Texas barbecue is obviously huge.
The closest I've ever been to, at least that I've been aware of eating at Michelin or a Michelin rated, was in Barcelona, which and just in that city, there's so many guide and then 1-star Michelin restaurants. Getting a star is not easy at all. Like, it's not like an easy feat to get. Like,
no, definitely.
To know that there were so many 1-star restaurants, yeah, such a small area, like this high density of stars. I was like, holy shit. I just remember the one spot we went to, that one of the hairdressers that I was working with in Barcelona, she's like, oh, a lot of people like this restaurant. And we went and we had a great time. And I looked it up because I wanted to know where it was so I could tell somebody else because we were teaching them, talking about crazy. We're teaching a class in English in Spain to Dutch hairdressers. I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
I don't speak Dutch. That way, if they wanted to like have food, I could say, oh, go here. And then I noticed that it was actually like a 1-star Michelin.
Yeah.
But like the dining experience wasn't this great, like this stuffy idea. It was very, it was actually like, we just happened to like slide in. We're like, hey,
yeah,
room for 2. Like, yeah, we get this shit right here.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is great. It was so good.
Yeah. I think in Europe, there's a higher, stars per capita
concentration.
Yeah, the concentration is much different.
Yeah.
And, I think that's changing very quickly in the US.
Oh, yeah.
First you had like LA, New York, Chicago, and
San Francisco.
And, now they're adding places in Florida and Texas, obviously. And
have you worked outside of the US, between Mexico and the US? Have you worked in Europe before?
I staged in Copenhagen.
Okay.
At Noma there. And that was the extent of overseas. I've worked in Mexico.
Yes.
Okay.
But spaging is
you're working, you're just, there was a short period of time versus, years.
Okay. So I'm just trying to break down what staging is.
It's call it a work internship, or, you essentially go
like an apprenticeship of the culinary world.
Well, you go work somewhere for free so that you can, either try and get a job or just get experience kind of seeing the ins and outs of an operation.
In Noma being, they're in the top 5 restaurants in the world, it seems like.
Yeah, they've been number one numerous times as well. But now
there's that beat, right?
Yeah. So now that they've changed it a little bit with the San Pellegrino list, to where if you number one, you can't no longer be voted number one again. Whereas before you could retain your number one spot and whatnot.
Interesting. And they were really big on the fermentation, correct?
Yeah, I think that, they were probably one of the bigger, if not the biggest restaurant to take this Nordic cuisine and really move the needle with fermentation and creating this fermentation program. And they wrote an incredible book, the Noma Guide to Fermentation, but with Renee and David Zilber, and it really changed cooking around the world.
Now, when you went over to Copenhagen, was that your first time to Europe?
No, I had been to Spain prior. Yeah.
Madrid,
Barcelona, some of the islands as well. So
how was that culture experience going to Scandinavia versus Spain?
Yeah. I think that, the people in Denmark, the Danish are, came off a little bit more reserved.
Yeah.
But, nonetheless, everyone was, once their guard was down, were super kind and amazing and intelligent. And I was just so surprised at how awesome Copenhagen was. And
I've always wanted to go. I am Scandinavian. So
oh, okay.
So my great grandmother is from Denmark.
Oh, okay.
My great grandfather was from Sweden on my dad's side. So when I went to Sweden, I felt for the first time I was around, there's a lot of weird cultural similarities that maybe were passed down, because I'm Swedish on both sides, mom and dad's side. Certain things that they did that I remember seeing my great grandma do, and little bits like that. I was oh, this is kind of interesting, how these things kind of transcend generation.
Yeah.
And I never felt more at home outside of my own house than I did when I was in Stockholm.
Cool.
So I was I'm moving there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure it all out. But Denmark's on my list. I really want to go and check out Denmark.
Yeah. It just,
and eat a teeperka.
It is
like a pastry. It's so good.
It felt very safe. It felt like an amazing place to raise a family. When you go somewhere and you see that no one locks their bike up outside and they just leave it outside, and
you leave the kids outside the store.
Yeah, they'll run inside the store.
15 kids outside a cafe, and they're all this, and no one's taking the kids. It's so weird. We don't want them to take the kids.
Yeah, no.
Surprised that they're not even worried about it. Yeah,
as an American, that's where your mind goes. You're holy shit.
And the kids.
Yeah.
Were you there? What time of the year were you in?
I was there in the fall, so it was chilly.
I was going to say, because
the winters are no joke.
It starts getting dark.
Yeah,
early.
Yeah, it gets dark early. The winter's no joke. When it rains, it's freezing rain, and everybody. I loved the bicycle culture.
Oh,
the infrastructure. I haven't, but
I think the statistic is there's 3 bikes per every Dutch citizen.
To me,
there are what we call the large parking structures for cars, just for bikes.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, and seeing the roadway infrastructure for bikes was awesome. I really enjoyed, biking all over Copenhagen. It was incredible.
You have all this amazing experience. You did not intend to be a chef, which I think is great. So you have these 2 engineering degrees. Does your engineering ever come in handy with cooking?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, you look at recipe development and being methodical and design of experiments and all these engineering terms that you learn in product design and things like that. And really also cooking, thermodynamics is the backbone of everything. And it's really, really, really interesting to kind of take that mindset when you look at how you cook or how you smoke a piece of meat, or what what's happening in an oven when you're cooking food, and heat transfer and all of these things that, I'm throwing out a lot of nerdy terms, but it really is, if you look at Nathan Myhrvold, who wrote Modernist Cuisine, that's really kind of the basis of what all of those books are written on, is what the engineering behind the way food behaves. And one of the pioneers of that, obviously, being Harold McGee, who wrote a book called On Food and Cooking, which I would recommend you pick up. It'll blow your mind.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like using your engineering degrees? Like, have you ever thought of like, man, I really wish there was like a kitchen appliance that did this better?
I've been trying to think about this shit for like the last 2 years, man. And I'm like, what engineering design could I put together for, there's got to be, I'm still working on it.
Well, if I come up with any,
man, let's go, man.
Maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe you just know too much. You need to like hang around with a bunch of dummies like me in the kitchen and be like, you're doing that wrong. Like, well, if this thing existed, it would make it. You're like, there you go.
Yeah.
I need a certain kind of strainer or whatever.
Yeah.
I always think about that with hairdressing. I'm like, they only made this thing.
Yeah.
And people are like,
well, and also in this day and age, like, it's so easy to create prototypes and outsource manufacturing. It's like, yeah, I need to come up with this patented idea really quick.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
With any struggles.
Please do.
I don't want and a small royalty. That's all.
All good.
Co-patent. That's fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
So what's next on your agenda?
After
I'm wearing your socks.
Amazing.
I'm wearing your socks. Which you gave me at the last visit, which was cool. So I'm wearing your socks, which is it raises money.
That was raised. So those socks were a product created to raise money for a scholarship that I created for the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America.
Yeah.
For Latin American immigrants to get a scholarship. But since then, since the sad closure of Bacalar, the Yucatán restaurant we had opened roughly a year ago, I was involved in a nonprofit that was based in the U.S. called Hands Offering Hope. It was founded by a couple, one American, one Mexican, who met in Mexico in the Yucatán, stayed in contact for years and years. They ended up getting married, amazing people. They have kids, still have family in the Yucatán in a small town called Chiquila. But, they obviously wanted to create something that gave back to the community. So they came up with this foundation. And, what it is essentially a culinary school that also includes things like, mentorship and job opportunities and things like that. And they provide these opportunities to some of the adolescent youth of some of these Maya communities. And it's now grown to become a 2-year program.
Okay.
And then upon graduation, we're helping get in these kids jobs in the hospitality industry. And obviously there's a booming hospitality industry between, Cancun, Playa, Tulum and whatnot. So I got involved with that, a little over a year ago, and was on the culinary board and had, and taking a couple trips down there to support, and was continuing to support. And then after everything that happened with the closing of Bacalar, the founders approached me and said, hey, we really think that we need someone that has a greater reach in the culinary network community to help grow the organization. How would you feel about interviewing with the board of directors and possibly taking over as the president and executive director? And at this point I was like, really believed in the mission, really believed in giving back to the region that my family's from, and one of the most beautiful places I think exist in the world. So I was like, shit, what the hell?
Yeah,
I'll give it a shot. I've never ran a nonprofit. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm more than capable of figuring it out. So about a month later, I was sworn in as the executive director and president of Hands Offering Hope. And then one of the first orders of business was a rebrand of the organization. So we are now called Oído, which is a Spanish term for what is said in kitchens, in Latin American kitchens or Mexican kitchens, rather than yes, chef.
Okay.
So in Mexico, when someone calls something out, instead of yes, chef, they say oído.
Oído.
Oído. O-I-D-O.
Oído?
Oído. Yeah.
Oído. Okay.
And that, beyond the understanding that's like, yes, chef, it's also like, yes, I hear you, So there was some metaphorical, symbolism there of like oído, meaning, we hear these kids, we hear these communities, we want to support them. But also the ties to the culinary aspect of it is kind of where this all came from. So we just rebranded and relaunched the organization, and we're no longer Hands Offering Hope, and we are Oído. So
congratulations.
Yeah, it's been exciting. We have, the classes, each 2-year program class is roughly 8 to 10 students. And, we're really trying to grow the organization to bring more students in. Our school is located in a small town called Cancun y King.
Okay.
And it's about 45 minutes outside of Cancun, close to Holbox. Very, very small town. So yeah, been spending a lot of time, traveling, doing dinners to raise money for the organization. And really just trying to grow who we are and create some awareness. Everybody loves to eat Mexican food. Everybody loves to cook Mexican food. But I think it's time to also bring the awareness about where it comes from and how we preserve it and how we help the communities that everyone enjoys here. Like, you can love traveling and vacation to Mexico all you want, but what are you doing to give back to going out there,
Mm-hmm. Do you think that at some point there's a concept that one of those resorts would have an entirely staffed fruit from the school?
Well, we have, right now we have 8 students working in a restaurant on Holbox Island. And so we'll send the entire class there.
That's so cool.
And they're all there, they're living on site and they're hustling. And, some of these kids have never, they live 45 minutes away from Cancun and they've never been to Cancun. They've never seen a Starbucks. They've never seen, a McDonald's for that matter. And it's just like, they've been so sheltered and closed off and set up to fail.
Why set up to fail? I don't. It's about this. So I'm literally,
because these towns are poverty stricken, poverty ridden, and a lot of them have the expectation that they need to stay home and contribute to the family. And some of the younger women get pregnant early, and there's just so many life obstacles that prevent them from getting further education and succeeding in life and accomplishing a lot of things that to you and I seem very easy, but to them are big dreams. And, through the organization, we've been able to help a lot of these kids realize that and open businesses and, become really, really successful and role models for other people in their community. Yeah, it's been exciting. And, it's obviously been hard, and being who I am and what I've done and, my work experience and being in a situation where, you're essentially asking for money a lot.
Yeah.
It's been difficult for me. I'm trying to understand that and grasp that. And, but asking money for a community is much different than asking money for, a new restaurant.
Yeah.
Nobody's expecting anything back.
Yeah. Other than hopefully the goodwill of the money.
Absolutely. Yeah. Changing lives.
Yeah. And I don't think you could put a price on that, the ROI of helping someone be better and helping the community. That's just the best ROI.
Yeah. And there's some really incredible stories that come out of it.
I bet. And then you have your restaurant in the DC area.
Yeah. So, we still have a project in the greater Washington, DC area, technically in Tysons, Virginia, called Omateo. And it's more of a high-end Tex-Mex restaurant. It's, we just had our 1-year anniversary on December 6th.
That's cool.
So very excited about it. I love the food. I love the team. I love everybody I work with there. And, it's a great group, and really looking forward to seeing that grow and progress.
What do you think one of the biggest misconceptions about chef life is that people ask you? Because I'm going to avoid asking that question.
Chef life?
Yeah. So here's the funny thing. I'm only asking this because we were having dinner, my wife and I, and our kids. We all sit around the dinner table every night and we have dinner as family. And my son was like, he said this, he goes, I want to pick a career where I could spend most time with my family. So I can be with my kids the way you are. Like, we've made choices.
Yeah. That's beautiful to hear.
And I was like, I feel like we're doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my son loves cooking. Like, he's obsessed with it. Right. And he goes, Dad, do chefs get to spend a lot of time with their family? And I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I go, but I will ask Gabe. Because you have kids.
Yeah.
So what's this chef like? I think with balancing family, because I think everybody everywhere is balancing work and family.
Yeah.
They have family.
Well, I will say that there's phases in the career of a cook and a chef, and early on, as a young cook,
yeah,
you really have to be kind of committed to your craft and learning and going above and beyond. And, obviously expectations and culture has changed. Before it was like, man, I'm going to go in on my day off and learn how to break down fish, or I'm going to go on my day off and learn how to make sausage, or how to do this, or how to bake bread or something like that. But now, there's certain changes in restaurant culture where it's like, well, we don't really want people in here working for free.
Okay.
On top of that, we want work-life balance. And so I think that the stereotype has changed, and there's kind of this paradigm shift. As you get older, I think that chefs are really trying to focus on mental health and work-life balance. So I think that, to the point of your son's question is, by the time he is of the age to make that kind of decision, that it may very well be where, chefs are working 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and having a good split of time with their family. I spent a good deal of time where I was working, 14, 16 hours, 6 days a week, and really, really bummed to not always have had, the amount of quality time I would have liked to. But I'm in a much better place now, and it's changed, and I'm super thankful for it.
I told my son something very similar I said, when I was in my 20s and even into my early 30s, I was working all the time. I was going into the academies on my day off to shadow watch. How does this educator teach? How do they instruct better? How can I be a better presenter? I go, I told my son, before you get your family, if that's what you want to have, if you want to have a wife and kids, if you want to do that, and that's your choice, it's not an expectation. If you want that, you better work your ass off so you can get yourself to a point where you have the option and you can afford to not work as much because you've done so much of that front end work, right?
Yeah.
And I think in these artsy endeavors, culinary arts, hairdressing, there is a career path, but it's not always as clear that you're going to be successful on that path.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very difficult to provide good mentorship sometimes because as time goes on, things aren't as relevant to that time. As you're saying, people don't want you to come in and work for free. That's something new that you didn't grow up with that mindset.
Yeah.
But now you have to adopt this mindset.
Yeah. No,
for better or for worse.
Absolutely.
It's the culture of the world, of that industry now. I was talking to my son, funny enough, I said, we'll see what happens by the time you get a job. And, he wants to do it. And I was like, well, as soon as you can start working and legally in Texas, maybe you should try to figure out if you want to work in a restaurant environment before you get on this path of being I want to be a cook or a chef.
Yeah.
Because,
I tell people that all the time, and so they're like, oh, should I go spend $100,000 on the culinary school at the CIA? And I said, well, before you make that commitment and put yourself into debt, go work in a restaurant for a few months and see if it's really for you.
Yeah.
And you'll know within a few weeks if it's for you or not. It's either going to light a fire in you or it's going to put one out.
Yeah, no, I actually think that that's perfect, because that's what I'm trying to like do with my son, because he's like, maybe I want to become a hairdresser, and I go like, I can give you all the hair cutting education you want, but you may not like working in the salon. You may find the pressure too high.
Yeah.
You may find it absolutely thrilling. Like I vibe off that. I'm like, oh, it's a busy day. Like, let's get in.
Yeah.
Staff clients, no room for error. Pressure's on. Let's do this.
Yeah. Same thing in the kitchen.
Yeah. But it's not for everyone.
No, it's not. And again, it's like I said, it either can light a fire in you or put one out that you thought you had burning.
So what else is new in the world of Gabe?
Oh, it's I just had I had surgery recently for a hernia. Hernias.
You get a hernia from like,
I don't know.
Like how
Well, I blame it on my the last restaurant. Our walk-in was upstairs, and God knows all the amounts of heavy shit I was carrying upstairs. But I don't know. I was having some. Yeah, I've been fairly active. I wouldn't say fairly. I've been very active my entire life. I played sports, from my youth all the way through high school. Continue to exercise, lift weights, run, do yoga through college and thereafter. So it was really shocking to me to find out I had hernias, and they didn't really bother me much. So I had this laparoscopic procedure to have them repaired. And so I've been trying to make myself feel like I'm recovered. Mm-hmm. And I'm, in this weird place where I'm like battling. Am I mentally like still feeling things because I know I had surgery? or is it really just a painful recovery?
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
It's been weird.
It's kind of like when people talk about like when they lose a limb, they still feel the tingling.
Yeah.
I was talking to an old classmate of mine, and I'm going to actually have him come on to the podcast. He said he would do it. Just needs to know the dates. He does jujitsu, but he was, I don't know the whole story. I know after high school, he enrolled in a branch of the military service.
Yeah.
I don't know which branch. I graduated high school in 2000. So 2001, a lot of people enlisted. He came back missing part of his arm, most of his leg, and fingers, but he does jujitsu. The mental fortitude to do, like, I want to like understand that, right?
Yeah.
But his Instagram handle, it says ghost pains, like that's in there, and it makes me think that there must be something to this.
Yeah.
So when you talked about,
so he lost those limbs in the service, and okay, probably in Iraq or something like that, or not Afghanistan,
probably. Yeah. What he said, I was just thinking of like the people who lose a limb or a finger or toe, and they go, I still feel like I have this thing. My dad also about a year ago had the same surgery that you had.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was saying like it was protruding out, like it was so bad.
His hernia.
The hernia was like protruding out. He had to like
pop it back in.
The way he was describing it, I was like, even thinking about it, I'm like,
mine was not that bad, and that sounds
well. And I had a client, and she had hernias, but she had about 6 operations, and the meshes had like destroyed. It was bad. Like it was a really bad. So I was telling her
the meshes failed
massively. It was something that I forget all the details of it, but she was talking to me about this. And I said, oh yeah, she's like, I'm finally recovered. I had like the son is like, had to reconstruct another reconstruction of like a mesh. I mean, it was bad. And she was saying that. And so I was telling her, oh, my dad's going to be having hernia surgery actually like in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And she's like, let me talk to your dad. I need to know like who the doctor is, what kind of mesh. She's like, I've been doing hair for like 15 years. So from like the second operation till now, like I've been through all her ups and downs. And I was like, okay. I'm like, yeah, talk. And it got me freaked out.
Yeah.
It got me freaked out about the mesh stuff. My uncle had one done like 35 years ago. Never had a problem with it.
Yeah. Well, my brother.
Yes.
My oldest brother had hernia surgery and ended up filing a lawsuit against the doctor because they installed the mesh backwards.
oh, fucking, what's that mesh stress integrating with your tissue? It's really hard to
Yes.
which is what my client had talked about.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they didn't do it backwards.
Well, I told my doctor about that. I said, and she kind of laughed. She's like, I don't know how that happens. It seems like, they're impossible to put them backwards. Well, I said, well, I hope that's some peace of mind that you're not going to fuck this up.
I mean, like,
But here I am.
Here you are. Yeah. Well, it's, I'm glad that you're feeling better though.
Yeah, I feel, I have some weird aches and pains and
Nerve damage?
I think it's nerve damage. I'm going to go get some acupuncture to see if that helps with some of this nerve damage, and we'll see. Well, I started exercising again and swimming and doing some rowing, and I don't have any major pains. So
those are all core activities too.
Yeah.
Are you okay? I have to ask you this. Because you have this really cool pizza oven.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce it?
The Uni. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's one of the more popular ones right now. But yeah, I've had it for almost 3 years now.
So we have like a gas grill.
Yeah.
It gets to about 650 degrees, almost 700 degrees. And we only use it for searing steaks. Should we just buy one of these pizza ovens and just sear steaks today?
You can. It's awesome.
Because the footprint of the gas grill is huge.
Yeah.
And this thing's like the size of like a large pizza. And my wife and I, we're very much contemplating like getting rid of our grill because we don't use it for and we don't use it for anything other than searing steaks, flank steaks, flat meat. That's all we use it for. We don't use it for the rotisserie and slow cooking. We don't do any of that.
No, totally.
Should we get that?
I think it's a game changer. And
can you bring it over and can I test it out?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm serious. Totally. And the other thing is like you get that it gets, up to 800, 900 degrees and you throw in like a nice butterfly whole fish and it's amazing, man.
How long does it take?
That's like literally cooks in like 2 minutes, man.
And I feel like the thing with fish is that if you're in an apartment, you don't have the necessary equipment to do fish correctly because from my understanding, it's like you need it to get hot quick.
Yeah, but I mean, you can
a short window of time because I feel like anytime I ever cook salmon in the oven, it would just like go from like it's almost done
to like over.
Yeah, in like a blink of an eye. They're like blueberries. Yeah. They're good at the grocery store. You get them home, they're already bad.
Yeah. Yes. No, I mean, there's a lot of delicacy when you're cooking fish, especially at home. If you don't have like a super powerful range.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is really like how you treat your fish. If you buy fish at the grocery store, the one thing you don't want to do is leave it in the bag wrapped in the butcher paper in your fridge.
Okay. Why?
Because it starts to harbor bacteria through the moisture environment.
So what should somebody do?
So one of the best things you could do is, take it out of the butcher paper, the plastic, put it on a plate lined with, maybe some paper towel and then change it out. It'll absorb some of that moisture. It also begins to dry out the fish a little bit. So that it's good for, a short period of time because when you put that fish in the pan, you start to get it nice caramelized and crispy. You don't get that, sad looking fish skin.
What if let's say like today I go to like someplace and I get fresh fish.
Yeah.
Do I need to take it out of the paper bag immediately if I'm going to cook it 4 hours later?
No, I mean, again, it depends what you're going for. If you're gonna sear it and you have the skin on, you want a nice crispy skin, I would take it out of the bag and get it on a plate in the fridge, kind of drying out so that it gets a little bit tacky and you get some nice crispy caramelization on that skin.
Like seasoning, just want salt, no salt.
I mean, I really like brining fish. So you make a solution of like 10% salt and maybe like 5% sugar. Put the whole fish in there for 45 minutes to an hour and take it out, let it dry. And then your fish is like perfectly seasoned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of, on my newsfeed.
Some people cure it too. You can just put like a light dry cure for,
I don't know how you cure meats.
It's super simple. Like you get, you take some salt, you can do like 75 salt, 25 sugar, add in some, some lime, some citrus peel or spices, lightly sprinkle the flesh and the skin of the fish, and you can let it hang out for anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes, depending. The longer you leave it, the firmer the fish is going to get. So you don't want like locks and shit, right? So you can just leave it there for a short period of time. It begins to season the fish, firms up the texture a little bit in a good way. So yeah, there's a few options.
I've been seeing a lot of people take like honey in steaks. Have you seen this?
I think I saw some like TikTok video where this guy like cured it in honey or what.
Yeah. Like a porterhouse or something.
Yeah. I saw that.
And I looked at that. I'm like, I have no idea what this is going to taste like, but I love honey and I love steak. So
it was like honey aged or something.
Yeah. Honey is like 10 days or something. I was like, this is insane. Because I also see people where they take the whole fish and they just cover it in salt.
Yeah. And that's more of like a cooking method rather than a curing method. So they'll take salt and herbs and egg whites and mix that together. And then when you bake it, it creates a really, really hard thermal shell. And then the fish just not only gets seasoned, but steams in there really beautifully. And you get a nice even cook. And then you take it out and you let it cool slightly and you crack it and you have this beautiful, nicely cooked fish.
It looks like it takes a long time to for the whole process.
It's not. It's pretty simple. Yeah. It's a long process when you're doing like the, Paul Bocuse presentation where you're like designing fish scales on the outer shell and things like that. You're trying to make it look beautiful because they do that where it's like a presentation thing as well.
Oh, I've never gone to a place like that.
Neither have I, but I've seen it.
Are there any restaurants on your hit list that you want to get to, that you want to try and tackle in the next year or so?
There's
I'm always curious, what is somebody who knows how to cook? What do you look forward to?
We as a dad with 3 kids, we have to go to places where the kids jive,
So Olive Garden.
No, I don't know what it is, but there's a thing right now where the kids love Olive Garden. My daughter thinks Olive Garden is amazing. That it kills me, but to each their own. We do something,
Roses Cafe for Mexican food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cool. That's the fair. We love the Roses Cafe. They have all the tortillas.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're not.
They like going to eat sushi. So we'll go have sushi sometimes. And, but yeah, there's a new Filipino place called Oko that just opened up. Friends of mine worked there and opened it. And so I'm excited to go try that out. I was supposed to go to the soft opening and, ended up being delayed on a flight coming into town and missed it. And just haven't had a chance to go back. So that one is kind of at the top of my list. I think, that's the main one right now,
That's locally here.
Yeah, that's locally.
Is there anything outside of our area that you're like, if I'm in this spot, I'm coming in early or leaving?
Well, there's the chef who was the chef for a very famous Mexican restaurant in New York called Cosme. Her name is Daniela Soto Inez. She just opened a new Mexican restaurant in Punta Mita, Mexico called Rubra. And, the space looks incredible. She's incredibly talented. So I think finding a way to make it down there and try that.
That's in New York?
No, it's in Mexico.
Well, that's in Mexico. Yeah. She was in New York.
She was in New York. Okay. She's originally from Houston. So.
Oh. I've never been to Mexico proper. I've only been Encinitas.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Ensenada. Yeah.
I always do this too. Because I know everybody comes from California. Everybody who lived in Encinitas. Yeah. And they all go down to Ensenada and Rosarito and all that.
Yeah.
But I never spent any time in Mexico outside of the 2 days.
You're missing out.
I know.
And there's
Mexico City,
and there's a lot of amazing places that are really family friendly. That places like Oaxaca and Puebla and Merida, and
my friend's Oaxacan.
Yeah, cool.
And he's a hairdresser. Great hairdresser.
Do you love mezcal?
Yeah, I have mezcal here. Do you want some?
I would love some if it wasn't 11 a.m., 12 a.m., 12 p.m.
7 o'clock.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, mezcal is one of my
favorites.
The favorite.
You really?
I mean, yeah.
I have not fallen in love with mezcal. Most people I know who drink mezcal drink it straight.
Yeah, same.
I have not fallen in love with it, mainly because of the smokiness, which is one reason I've had a harder time with a lot of bourbon and stuff like that. I have fallen in love with single malt Scotch, but they're not as peaty, right?
Yeah.
So I've been able to do that. However, the more I'm getting falling in love with single malt Scotch, I'm finding that mezcal's becoming more palatable.
Yeah. I think the next time I see you, I'm going to bring you some mezcal to try that will change your perception on, because I think that is the horrible misconception of mezcal, is that everything is smoky, and there's so much more to amazing mezcal than smokiness. You know, there's much more flavors and mineralities and terroirs that you taste in different types of agave varieties, and it's mind blowing to me. To me, I find it more complex than wine at times.
So funny you say this. So when I was in San Francisco, there's a place called Tommy's Mexican. It's off 24th and Geary, right in the Richmond, and they started the like agave, fresh lime juice, tequila.
Yeah,
like the
classic
margarita from like the 60s. Julio's his name.
Yeah.
You know who I'm. Anyways, yeah. So Spencer, who's my friend here in Austin, he was the executive chef for some restaurants out in San Francisco. And I was out on a job teaching years ago. Like, he was living in the city, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? It was like right after his birthday. He's like, I don't know. I go, well, look, I discovered this guy named Julio, who's like one of two people who are the tequila ambassadors of Mexico. And it's right here in San Francisco. Like, can we go? He's like, all right. And that's what turned him on to tequila, actually, because he used to never really be a tequila guy. But he asked me, he's like, oh, what kind of tequila? Like, I'm like, well, you know, this one. I mean, literally, it's the hardest selection of tequila I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, well, I like that one. And he goes, oh, funny enough, they're all from the same valley. They're all from the same region. Actually, this person's a cousin of that. And it was wild. And there's a company, a distillery called Ocho.
Yeah, Tequila Ocho. Yeah.
Yeah. And their whole idea is that it is the terroir. It's the soil that produces the different stuff. And after that, I was like, okay, there's a lot more to this than just how somebody would say like, oh, we're distilling gin or, you know, vodka. It seemed like the earth really does have a profound effect on the agave, more than if you're making gin or vodka.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's different distilling methods of mezcal, and there's, wild agaves that grow on cliff sides that are harder to harvest, and, Capone agaves that are, they wait till they flower before they harvest them and things like that. And it's just, and they cut off the Capone so that the concentration of sugar in the piña is much different. And it's just so much variation in how it's produced and whatnot. And then there's, other spirits in that realm that are similar but different, like Raicilla and Boca and Sotol and Maquinora and all that stuff.
Can you cook with these same things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you cook with those often?
I do. I mean, I'll do different things like, in a dessert or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Mezcal and a sorbet is amazing.
What?
Yeah.
What's the fruit then of the sorbet?
Well, I mean, the only thing is, it could be anything. It could be,
is there a preference you have?
Yeah. Prickly pear is really, really good. Mango, coconut, all of these things, you cook off a little bit of booze and then you have a little bit of that lingering flavor from the spirit. It's amazing.
My son was we had to explain to him that you can cook off the alcohol, because I made a red wine reduction for steak.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dad, I can't have this. Yeah. And I was like, the concerns of the 7-year-old, right? Yeah. And I was like, no, when you do this, he's like, so I can have wine. No, you're not having wine, you're having a wine reduction. And he was, my wife's like, you're making it more complicated. You're actually confusing it more. I'm like, no. I'm like, you're not having wine.
Just call it non-alcoholic wine.
I was trying to explain to him, like, it's a sauce.
Amazing.
And let me play this in real quick. Get all that hair out.
Yeah.
So we just had Thanksgiving. Do you do a turkey?
Yeah, we did. We smoked a turkey we smoked.
I'm always curious about this shit.
No, it was kind of a low key Thanksgiving this year, because it was just my family and my brother's family, and they live, 5 minutes away from us in the same neighborhood. And the kids just want things like mashed potatoes and mac and cheese and rolls and, eat very minimal amounts of turkey and ham and things like that. So, we smoked a turkey this year. It was nice. It was chill. Usually we make a lot more food. it's all dependent on the amount of people and who's going to be eating what we're doing. So
yeah, no, the same thing for us. It was just us four, and we did gravy, mashed potatoes, filet mignon,
nice,
colored carrots.
love it.
My wife, we decided to do a pie from scratch. Like, we take the camellia berries, we melt it, we made the pie crust from scratch.
Beautiful.
Pumpkin pie. One thing we didn't do from scratch was get the actual puree.
The puree, yeah.
That was the only thing we didn't do.
Yeah.
And then I made pumpkin ice cream. And so my wife was like, I never want to make a pie again. We'll just make the pie crust.
Yeah.
And there's a place in California called Julian, and they're known for apples. And they have a big apple harvest, and they're really known for their apple pies. And some of the apple pie places would also have apple crust cookies. So they would take the pumpkin pie, the pie crust, and make these cookies. So
wow.
Growing up, I would do that. And my great grandma would also talk about memories, right? Food and memories are like,
Yeah.
Same thing with smells. And so she would make pies from scratch, like apple, pumpkin for all the holidays. And then the leftovers, she would like just smash them out. We'd have pie crust cookies. And so now I think for Christmas, which is going to come up, by the way, this will air after Christmas, but we're going to do pie crust cookies with the pumpkin spiced pie flavoring ice cream. And so it'll be like our deconstruction.
Oh, cool.
But we didn't really do anything crazy. This year we're gonna have more people over for Christmas. We'll do more of a turkey and all that.
Yeah.
But I never grew up liking turkey.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like always boring and dry.
I think I agree. I think as I've got older, I began to like it more and more. And now I really enjoy turkey. We went out to Lockhart yesterday to go look at actually some smokers and some grills at the mill scale showroom.
Oh, cool.
Custom designed grills and smokers.
What?
We were looking at one for the nonprofit actually.
Oh, rad.
And we went to, there's obviously like the big 3 or 4 barbecue places out there. You have Black's and Smitty's and Croots. And so we went over to Smitty's to get, a small little bite. And man, the turkey was phenomenal. It was perfect. Of all the things that I tried, it was the turkey that like I left going, I could eat a pound of this.
And when something's done so amazing, it just changes your whole perception about food.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I thought growing up sausage was like Jimmy Dean's, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what you think of, sausage. And then you see the bigger sausage, you're like, okay, so it's a hot dog, but then you go to a barbecue spot and you get their sausage, you're like,
yeah, no, for sure.
It's so good.
Agreed.
I'm always wanting my wife to try a different kind of bird for one of the holidays. Like I would like to do like duck.
Yeah.
I've had pheasant. I'm definitely more adventurous.
Yeah.
I think about that. Especially since I have weird food preferences. Like I don't like pickles or mayonnaise or mustard, but I will eat almost any meat. So I'm like, let's try the duck. And she's like, what the?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that? Like, I want to get quail eggs. I want to try like quail eggs for breakfast.
Yeah. Oh, they're tiny. They're little shooters.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody, he was from New Zealand, and he was talking about having ostrich eggs and how you have to pretty much get like a drill to crack the ostrich egg.
Yeah.
Because, but when you open that thing up, it's massive. Like one thing's like an omelet for 4 people.
Yeah. No,
and it's got me going. I'm like, where can I get ostrich eggs? Have you ever cooked with an ostrich egg?
I have.
Really?
Not cook. I've been given an ostrich egg and we cooked it, but yeah.
Is it hard to crack?
It is. It's tough.
It's like apparently
It's pretty thick. Yeah.
Yeah. Did it taste good?
Yeah. I mean, it was good. It was rich. The whites felt richer than a normal chicken white. Yes. Like, yeah. Not as, I don't know how to describe it, but it didn't feel as like lean and bland, I guess.
Oh, so there's just naturally more flavor.
Yeah. It felt like if there was fat in it almost,
Do you think that could be that like most ostriches, I'm assuming are like more wild, so just kind of like free range grazing?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Like the meal or whatever it is. You grab this stuff.
Cool. Yeah, whole roasted duck is nice.
Duck is one of my favorite things to eat. If it's on a menu, I will always go with the duck.
Yeah.
Because you just never see it. And I have this assumption that if you're putting duck on the menu, you know what the fuck you're doing. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it's.
Do you prefer the thigh, the legs, or the breast?
I've only had breast.
Yeah.
At the places I've gone to. I've not had the legs, thighs.
You should give the confit duck legs a try.
Okay.
Or you submerge them, like you cure them, like I mentioned, like a dry cure.
Yeah.
Cure them overnight in like super aromatic cure, and then you cook them really low temperature, submerged in duck fat.
Okay.
And then until they're like fork tender almost, then you pull them out, and then you like just sear them in a pan until they're like, or grill them, and they just like, it's really, really amazing texture, crispy, juicy. That, and a classic that, and like some roasted potatoes or some risotto or something like that. So,
what's one of your favorite things to cook? Do you have like a meal that you go like, I could eat?
I love a good roast chicken.
Really?
Yeah, I do. That, I love cooking mushrooms a lot, simplicity.
A
lot of vegetables.
You like vegetables?
Yeah, I love vegetables.
What's your favorite one?
Probably say mushrooms.
Really?
Yeah.
But isn't that considered like a fungus?
It is. I love mushrooms. I love squash. I love carrots. How about yourself?
If I'm gonna pick any
vegetable,
it's probably Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
I think that when they're done, amazing. They are just outstanding.
Yeah. What's your favorite? Roasted or fried or?
I like them usually roasted, and I'm a big fan of anytime you can put bacon into them.
Yeah.
Bacon to me is not a meat; it's a seasoning. It's like salt, pepper, bacon.
It's fair.
People say like, "Oh, I don't eat pork." I feel I don't want to say this that it's going to come off like rude, but like I feel bad. They're missing out on so much flavor. Like I understand they don't want to eat the animal, but that flavor is so distinct.
Yeah.
Like I save the bacon grease. I'm like,
oh yeah,
we're cooking eggs in this. We're cooking this and that. And it just adds so much more flavor.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say I like roasted. I like it when they go through and they use like pomegranate seeds in there or pomegranate. And they're just that sweetness.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's probably like my favorite vegetable. I don't eat a lot of vegetables. I really thought.
You should try roasted Brussels sprouts. Are you familiar with salsa macha? It's like an oil-based dry chili. It's like the Mexican chili crisp.
No,
I'm gonna send you. Damn it! I wish I would have asked you this because I would have brought you something. I'm gonna send you a recipe.
Okay.
And then you're gonna take your Brussels sprouts and roast them, and then you're gonna dress them in the salsa macha, and then it's
spicy.
Yeah, I mean it's as spicy as you want it to.
Hey, I'm good with spice.
Yeah. And then you're gonna be like, why didn't I think of this shit earlier?
Probably.
Yeah. But you'll have to figure out what kind of oil you want to use for it's an oil-based salsa.
Okay.
So
all right. Well,
olive oil becomes a little overpowering in flavor.
Yeah.
So
I'm guessing avocado has less.
Avocado would be actually a good one. Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking like when it comes to flavor profiles, like olive oil has its own flavor, which is
it
could taste good with bread and salt and pepper.
Yeah.
And bread in Italian restaurants, but like coconut oil definitely has its own. I mean, that's like one of the more noticeable flavors. Could you have to use an oil? Could you render like beef salads and get it like nice and liquidy?
I mean, you can.
Okay.
You could definitely use tallow or pork fat. The only thing is some of those solidify at room temperature. Yeah. So if you wanted to use a sauce, you would just have to heat it up a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, it's not that bad.
No, not at all. I mean, you never want to eat it cold anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well,
the only issue is if you're serving it like on a fish or a ceviche.
Yeah.
The cold from the fish will tighten it up.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll kind of save like our modified chimichurri, and anytime we're going to eat it, we have to let it start,
tempering, yeah.
And then I usually just kind of sit it next to something warm, so then the heat that's radiating off that is able to not cook it.
Yep.
Because that's the worst thing.
Yeah. And then your herbs start to brown and all that other stuff. Yeah.
So 2025 could be a big year for you. Sounds like, with all these new endeavors going on.
Well, that's
You have to come up with a patent.
one day at a time. You got to find a patent.
Of the nonprofit down in the Yucatán. It's cool.
Yeah. How about yourself? What do you got going on in 2025? Any big projects or goals?
Well, it's to take the podcast on a little travel, right? There's two areas of interest. One is Southern California, where I'm originally from. So there's a lot of people who just don't make it out to Austin.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier for me just to go out visit them. That's one. And then there's a group of friends and acquaintances out in Tennessee.
Cool.
So that would be another thing I would like to go visit. There's a few logistical things I have to work through. Like, do I want to bring the same exact setup? I have a potential smaller footprint of recording gear. So I need to test that out here before I take it. Some of the best advice I got was a hairdresser named Chris Barron, and he said, never do something new for the first time in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, like, you've done this half of it in one aspect. You've done the other half another.
And it's so true. I mean, that was kind of like, that's like rule number one for like competing on like a cooking show, like Top Chef or something like that. It's like, you don't want to like create a new dish for the first time on a show, like where your elimination is based on what you're cooking.
Yeah.
So the exact same.
Like you're like, I'm going to try a saltier version. It's like, no, don't try the saltier version. Try with what you know is a crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
And so the only way you can do that in that aspect is like, okay, well, I'm going to switch up the camera. I'm going to try some other things and see. And if that works. And who knows? It could work out better than what I'm currently doing.
Yeah.
Maybe this challenge. I think like challenges are great because they force you to reconsider like everything that's working for you and everything that's not working for you. And sometimes you come out better because of the challenge. Like imagine if, you're able to do something with less equipment and the same quality, if not even better quality, then like maybe that's what I need to do.
No, for sure.
So that's one of the things. 2025, I've been working on creating a list of topics that I want to cover for an educational online program.
Cool. That'd be through a personal website or a providing website?
It would be linked through my Tablets here.
Cool.
It would be a membership fee. But it would be more than just what I've seen out there is great. A lot of people do. There's so many great hair educators out there that do a really great job on their platform of like promoting, like, here's how you can do this and here's how you can do that. And what I want to do is how I essentially, if you were to come take a class from me, Gabe, as a hairdresser, I'm going to go through and cover a bunch of things the way I cover it. Finding your own voice takes a while, as any artistic field.
Yeah.
You start doing the things that inspire you. And then at some point, those things, either you continue to keep doing that or you start going like, oh, well, you know what? Actually, I like this. And then you start getting exposed to more stuff. Yeah. And then you start finding your own voice. You start picking and choosing the little bits of this and that. And so what I want to do with my education platform is I really want to take what I do in a short time with a one-on-one class with me in a salon. But like, if you were to have a week with me, this is what we would be doing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to find a way to do that online.
That's awesome. And everything you just described is like 100% spot on. It's like you're talking about cooking.
This is why I think
it's so relevant. I mean, everything you said, it was so, I connected with it so much because it's so true. Like so much of being a chef, and growing from a cook to a chef is about finding your voice and finding like what you like and what inspires you to create your own voice. And you do that by, obviously you start by cooking other people's food and learning from other people, but it's really about developing your own voice and what shapes and molds that to become who you are. And it's funny the way you describe that, because I was like, yeah, you're talking about cooking.
I actually think it'd be a really fun game show if you took the world's top chefs and you took the world's top hairdressers and you have them have to learn each other's secrets. Like, would we be able to?
You're gonna have to use your LA contacts to pitch that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You and I could.
Let's go.
We could do this. We could do this. I can get some hairdressers here in Austin. We can get Spencer. We can get Andre.
Yeah.
Get a few people, and we could just have them learn how to apply color and one haircut, and you show us how to do like one baking. This is a game show.
Yeah.
This is a
It'd
great.
be amazing.
It would be fun. I don't know anybody. Wait, I do know somebody in the game show competition world. He did a makeup.
This is like the Great British Bake Off meets.
But they had
Paul
celebrities.
Mitchell.
They had celebrities.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet Paul Mitchell would probably sponsor it. I work with L'Oreal, so maybe they might get behind it. And who knows?
Is Cindy Crawford still a L'Oreal ambassador? She was, right? Was it Cindy Crawford?
You know what? I don't know. And it's funny you bring up Cindy Crawford. My great aunt did a the genealogy thing.
Yeah.
Like the family tree. And it turns out Cindy Crawford is like my fourth cousin.
No way.
Now, I would have to talk to her to confirm all these people are. But everything on the
23andMe.
what's the other one? The other one that LDS puts together because they know everybody's history. That one, the family tree one, that website, it does show that she would be like my fourth cousin.
Wow.
So the funny thing is once my aunt said that, it made me go like, well, now that's creepy. I was like 14. I have technically my cousin.
Everybody had a poster of Cindy
I
Crawford.
didn't know. You know? It wasn't like, that's my cousin. Isn't she hot? Like, and that's a weird thing to say.
Everybody had a poster of Cindy Crawford around that time.
Yeah, I think so. By the way, Gabe, this is just
That looks
air dry.
amazing, man.
Air dry.
Looks beautiful.
I think the best haircut is usually the one that air dries the easiest. You know,
Yeah.
big hair type.
Like I said, every time of the 2 times you've cut my hair, I leave here going, holy shit.
I want to fade in your neckline though,
Okay.
because it's kind of a hard stop, and I don't like that. I want it to be a little bit more of like a fade into your skin. So, are your kids thinking about going into the culinary world, or are they thinking about?
No, I don't think they all enjoy it, cooking, and I know when we make food and things like that, but I don't think any of them have any interest of that at this point in their lives.
I'll tell you, I never really had an interest in cooking until I moved out, and then I had to learn how to cook. And thankfully, Spencer was doing his like staging and all that after you got to Cordon Bleu to like explain to me like, here's how you can go through and do this, and here's how you can go through and do that.
Yeah.
And then from being a hairdresser and having women sit in my chair all day, I learned, I know this sounds crazy, that if you're a guy who has a clean bathroom and knew how to cook, that was like 100 points
Yeah.
of dateability. And so I was like, all right, note to self, keep the toilet clean, learn how to cook 3 meals. Like,
Have a full set of silverware and plateware.
yeah, all matches. Yeah.
That all matches.
Yeah. And I'll never forget the first time I really took this seriously was my buddy Tim for Christmas got me this book, and his girlfriend at the time, she was running the what is it called, the farmers market in LA, so she knew all the chefs in that area, and he got me this book called 2 Dudes, 1 Pan. The guy that did Animal.
Yeah.
And I think they're making a reference to something else.
Yeah. I think I know too.
It's a guy that did John and Vinny.
Yeah.
All that. And so it was a whole cookbook, which I thought was really good for being a single guy or just anybody who doesn't know anything about cooking. Is you would look at these recipes and then they say like, oh, you need a Dutch oven. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know what that is. Like, I'm going to have this. And it was great because it was broken down by how you cook it.
Yeah.
Here's a big bowl. All right, you can make poke. Okay, poke. Or like, hey, you have a grill. Here's what you do with this. And here's like, they broke it down by what you cooked.
The equipment. Yeah.
So you can look at your.
So if you had, there's clearly a George Foreman grill section.
I didn't know. And I've never had a George Foreman. But I had friends who did. They would just make burgers.
Yeah, that was a game changer in college. That's for sure.
Oh, I bet. I had a blender, and my buddy Robert, he's like my best friend, and he would basically uses grandma's recipes from Mexico. And so like we'd be making like, he called it like Diablo sauce, like this crazy red sauce that was like super spicy. And like we just like coat all like our shrimp and all that. And so he's like my go-to for like food. He's the one who got me to the meat suadero.
Yeah.
Which is like one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
In birria. Yeah, I can't do it.
It's all good. It's all good. I'll get you there, man.
But he was like, never did this. And he had that. It's like, no, Robert. He's like, dude, try this. And so like now, anytime he's like, have this. And I'm like, okay. Like there's just friends that you just trust them on. And yeah, that guy.
That's amazing.
He's actually coming out really soon. And he's like, where do we do? I wonder here in Austin. I'm like, I don't know, dude. What you eat? So I'm going to ask you for food recipes.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
He now lives in North Carolina and he's probably going to want like something really delicious.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that afterwards.
Cool.
I'm going to put a little bit of prop in. I like the waves.
Yeah, I think it looks amazing.
Cool.
Really, really excited with it.
Ending the year with haircuts, we start off all that.
I'm going to snap a photo. That's a shitty one. And my daughter is asking me to reload what? Reload her lunch money.
Oh. Isn't it crazy? You can do all these things now. You know how you reloaded lunch money after you realized you didn't have any that day at school? And then you got home and you said, hey, I need lunch money. I didn't have any today.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we found this really awesome lunch boxes that keep the heat in. And they eat relatively early. And so the food is still warm. So like today we'll have like that Italian pasta for lunch tomorrow. And they're able to have pasta with like.
So you can warm it up in the morning by the time that's amazing.
Yeah. So like so many times I'll be grilling chicken or like little bits of filet mignon and putting that like in pasta and over rice and all this stuff. And one of our
and they eat within, from the time they leave to when the time they have lunch is probably less than 4 hours, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It is still warm and hot. Yeah. Not like piping hot, but warm. And they're like, they like that way better than they rather have a sandwich that's gotten soggy with like, some sort of condiment on there.
Yeah.
So Gabe, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Tab, it's been amazing. Yeah. Always good conversation and beautiful hair.
Thank you.
I'm walking out feeling like I went to the salon to get a blowout.
Have you done that before? So
No, but I'm going off the terms I hear and throwing it out by the way.
I like that. Awesome. Well, dude, thanks so much. And maybe there'll be another time.
Yeah, I would love it.
Later.
All right. Bye.